Welcome to the Catalyst Sale Podcast. Many of us struggle with sales, whether it's from confidence, comfort, and just not wanting to be salesy. We want to help our customers. We know we can, but we complicate the process. This podcast is designed to help professionals like you improve at sales through process, practice, frameworks, and thinking differently about what you already know. I'm your host, Jody Mayberry, and with us is the founder of Catalyst Sale, Mike Simmons. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Jody, it feels like we've been talking for about 2 hours.
It does feel that way. It does. Well, Mike, I did something recently that I haven't even talked about this publicly at all for no good reason. I mean, it's not like I'm trying to hide it. I did 50,000 steps in a single day.
It's funny. We recorded a couple of podcasts already and you haven't mentioned that live, but that was one of the first things you brought up. I kind of feel like you feel bad that I didn't ask you a question about any recent accomplishments. So, hey, Jody, have you done anything cool recently?
No, that I don't feel bad about that at all. I was just looking at something new to bring in this episode, and that happened recently. So there you go. But yes,
so
Mike,
why 50,000? Why 50,000?
Because it's very hard to do. I'd done 40,000 a couple of times and had never done 50. Neither had my cousin, who is on this walking streak with me. We've both been doing it for the same amount of time, except mine's one day longer. And we just decided, let's do it together. So we set out, we did it all in a row, 28 miles with only a couple of short breaks here and there.
Jody, does walking ever get in the way of something important that you need to do?
No, but sometimes other stuff that seems important gets in the way of walking.
Okay. I kind of wonder, you've been doing this 10,000 step thing for a long time. You even have stickers, laptop stickers. Thanks for sending one over to me. The laptop stickers on 10,000 steps a day. At what point does the walking become an addiction?
Well, that reminds me, Lee Cockrell told me a couple years ago I should probably check into the Betty Ford Clinic.
I know, and now I'm being that friendly reminder on the other side that not only should you move to figure out, I don't know if you want to figure out a way to move to Florida anymore, but Arizona is pretty good. But yeah, so do you need to check in someplace? You okay?
Well, even if it isn't an addiction, and Mike, I can stop anytime I want. Even if it is an addiction, there are worse things to be addicted to.
There are worse things to be addicted to. Can you really stop?
Anytime I want.
Good.
All right. I just choose not to.
What's the goal? Like, what's the threshold where you're going to say, you know what, now I'm ready to divert my attention to something new. I want to create a new chain.
I don't know. There's no good reason to stop. And the problem comes is, when do you decide to stop? Because there's always a new milestone coming. For example, day 1600 in a row is coming up. You can't stop there. So there you go. And so far, it's kind of interesting to see, can I keep it going despite other things, injuries, weather, vacation? So far, nothing has stopped me.
You are a machine.
I'm something, all right.
Yeah, I wonder if anybody's got an idea on why or when or what milestone Jody should use as a stopping point. I mean, 1600 is pretty cool. 1600 is about, if I remember right, I think that's what I got on my SAT. Actually, again, I'm telling jokes that my family will give me a hard time about. I may not have even gotten half of that on my SAT. Actually, I think I was just a little bit north of 1,000. So, but that's in the past. I wonder if there's a time period. It could be 1601 and intentionally stopping at 1601 for some reason and then moving on to the next thing. I wonder what the next thing could be. Maybe we could come up with some ideas for you, Jody.
Well, I don't know, Mike. I feel like you've gone from, hey, this step streak is really cool, I admire you for doing it, to, why in the world are you doing this? It's an addiction. So I've noticed a shift in your opinion.
Well, and actually what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out if we could get people to deliver some kind of a proposal to us that would help you move. And they might even be able to use the framework that we're going to talk about today. So how's that for a segue?
There you go. Perfect segue. So we talked recently about pricing. During pricing, that led us to talk about proposals, because Mike told us the first thing people look at are the price. So let's just talk about better proposals. So there you go, Mike.
So what goes into a proposal?
Well, price is one.
Yep. What else?
description of, hopefully, a description of the work to be done.
Anything else?
Well, I think, well, based on your last conversation on the last episode, the problem that you're solving, that goes in there. But I have noticed with proposals that you also have to be clear about what you're delivering. Otherwise, there's scope creep. Otherwise, there's people thinking one thing when the other isn't. So you just need clarity. And I think that can come in the proposal of what work is actually being done by when and what's getting delivered. I think it's good to spell that out in a proposal.
Yeah. So there's all of these things. I mean, think about it. We're talking about all of the different components that can be put into a proposal. There's price. There's the thing that's going to be delivered. There is a lot of stuff that could create scope creep. There are a number of organizations out there who put the entire company story into their proposal. This is who we are. This is why we do what we do. This is who we do it for. It's just the whole founder story, the founding of the organization story. Maybe they've got a lot of quotes in there for some social proof, but it just seems like we figure out a way to add more stuff, add more steps into the proposal. And I don't understand why we do it, other than we feel like if this gets forwarded inside an organization, it might land on the desk of somebody who really wants to all of the background detail and they want all of the backstory. And I would challenge you to break that habit. And the reason why I would challenge you to break that habit is if in your sales process, you've not identified all of the people that it could potentially, people's desks that it could potentially land on, then you've not done your job. So make sure you're doing your job. Make sure you understand who cares about the problems that you're solving, whether they're the people who end up using your product, or they're the people who use your product report to, they're the people who are impacted by your product. They are the people who have some kind of budget authority to make decisions. But one of the challenges that people will make when coming to proposal writing is they feel like they just have to put everything in there. And I would challenge you to think of it this way. Think of it in the context of less is more. And Jody, you hit on a really big, important point, and a word that's important to me, and a word that we've talked about a couple of times on the podcast so far this year: clarity, clarity, clarity. So be very clear. Less is more.
So less is more. What are the pieces? If we're thinking that less is more, what has to be in a proposal?
So I'm going to add this to the podcast templates that we discuss. And there are a couple of different templates that we use. And one of them is territory planning. The second one is account planning. And the first one that we rolled out was call planning. We talked about these way, way back in the day. And these are all part of the tactical discussions that we have on the podcast. I'm going to add another one in here, which is proposal. And there are 4 pieces that should go into every proposal. And for most of you who's been listening to this for a while, you know that I like to work in simple shapes. That account plan is a hexagon, it has 6 sides. The territory plan is a series of 4 to 5 lines to help create focus. It's now incorporated in our logo. The call plan is a square. The proposal is also a square. There are 4 things that you should include in every proposal, and we've talked about a couple of them. One is the problem that we're solving for. What problem exists in the organization, in their words, based on our understanding, based on all the discovery that we did, based on all of the discussions we've had, based on managing and navigating the process. Let's list out the problem that we're solving for inside that organization. So that's what, and that's at the top of this square. The next thing that's important, and I put this on the line just to the left of the square. So on the left-hand side, why is it important to solve that problem? So what problem are we solving? Why is it important to solve? On the opposite side, and we'll share the diagram, and we're just working around 4 sides of a box here, 4 sides of a square. What problem do we solve? Why is it important? The opposite side is how. How do we solve it? How will we solve it? This thing that we're going to deliver into the organization. And the last one, the bottom one, the thing at the end, is the price. Now, just because we've got them listed in that order on the square, that doesn't mean that's the order that they should be delivered in the proposal. And I'll share some thoughts around that here in just a moment. But if we can cover all 4 of those boundaries, What problem are we solving? Why is it important to the organization, business impact? How we're going to solve it, and the cost. We've now given them a solid framework that they can use to justify a purchase that they're making inside their organization. And when it makes it on the desk of the person that you didn't speak to directly, they will have that information right in hand. And it should be very simple to understand and very clear.
All right. That's a good way to look at it. And so let's talk about price first, because you said last episode, it could be worthwhile to just put it up front because people are going to look at that first. So talk to us a little about that, where price goes and in this proposal and why it matters where it's placed.
Yeah, my preference is to deliver price as early as possible, as late as necessary. And that comes up in a number of different ideas and things that we'll talk about in general. But at a minimum, I want to have that on the first page so that they're not having to flip pages. Or if they're looking at this in an email, they're not having to scroll down and scroll past a bunch of stuff. So most people will make the mistake of talking about their organization. It'll be this long thing about how great the organization is, and they'll start with all of that information. They might even describe how powerful their solution is. What I want on that first page, and I want to use this structure: what problem? So our understanding of the problem, why it's important to the organization, what the business impact is, why it's important for them to solve, what happens if they don't solve. And if we can get into some of that detail, that's great. But what problem do they have? Why it's important? And then the framework of the pricing. So what are they actually purchasing? How many licenses they're purchasing? What's the cost of the solution? I don't like to line item out each of these items because that's areas where you can get into some pretty detailed negotiation around trying to manipulate pricing for each individual section. I like to price based on an overarching solution. So maybe there's 3 or 4 different products that are incorporated in the solution. You think about it in the context of buying a car. When you buy a car, you don't pay for all of the parts. There's some major things that you might upgrade or downgrade in there, but you're buying the car as a solution. Same thing when you're delivering stuff to your customer, deliver the whole of the solution. So what problem, why it's important, the pricing for what they're delivering. Ideally, that's all on that first page. And then when you get into the second and third pages, then you can start talking about what your project plan looks like, how you address it, some background information, maybe some of that social proof that we were talking about before.
So you're talking multiple pages for a proposal. I do know, and I've done this at times, even though it's not my preference, where you're just so busy, or maybe some people don't know any better, and you just email a proposal, not even a formal proposal, just an email that says, hey, here's the price for what we talked about. Talk to me about that. Is that a bad thing to do, or what? Or does that work sometimes?
Yeah, it absolutely works. And don't overcomplicate it. If you can say it in 1 page, don't take 3. If you can say it in 10 words, don't take 30. So less is more. If I'm going to go ahead and send an email like that, let's say I'm drafting that email and it's, hey, can you just send me a rough proposal, an overview of what we discussed? Maybe I'm trying to move fast. They're trying to move fast. I would do the same kind of thing. Thank you for the time. Here's my understanding of the problem. Please let me know if I missed anything. Based on our understanding of the problem, this is how we would solve, or this is why it's important for that to be addressed. So why? Then here's the pricing, and here's how we're going to go about doing it. And if you need to keep it even shorter than that, I would just talk about what problem and then how we solve, and keep it really, really simple. The risk there, and the reason why these shapes are so important to me, is if I talk about the what problem, and I don't hit on the why or the how, and I only give pricing, then I've got 2 areas of my shape that have dotted lines in them, are not fully filled in. And the risk is that the shape itself won't be able to hold water. It might collapse on itself. It's not as stable as it is if I've got all 4 of those items. But yeah, simple is good.
What are some of the mistakes you've seen in proposals that we need to make sure we avoid?
I think the biggest one is that one that we just talked about a little bit earlier, which is I feel like I've got to tell the entire story of the business up front. I talk so much about us, who we are as a company. And I've seen this happen in slides that are used. So some people will deliver proposals in PowerPoint slide format, and they'll be really graphically rich, and they'll be really proud about this proposal template that they put together. and the first 6 or 7 slides are all about them as an organization, or maybe even about the companies that they've worked with. And ultimately, what people do is they still just scroll to the end to try to get to the pricings, because that's the thing that's most important to people. They want to understand, what am I going to pay for this thing? And then they'll work, if they've got the time, they'll work things backward. But I think the biggest challenge or biggest problem is we put too much information in the front end of the proposal, and we don't get to price early enough. I think the other one that we make is we overcomplicate it. We feel like, hey, if I can deliver a 10-page proposal, that's better than a 1-page proposal because it's more thought out. And I would just go back, and I think this is a Pascal quote, and if not, then I'll correct it in the show notes. But it's that comment of, I'm sorry to have written you such a long letter. I didn't have time to write you a short one. Be bright, be brief, be gone, be clear in the proposal. So shorten things. So 1, starting about yourself. 2, making them a bit too long. And then 3, and this is the worst one, when you find that a proposal works and all of a sudden you get success with it and everybody on the team copies it and they use the same one over and over again, except one person on the team forgets to change Microsoft in their find replace, and they send a proposal to Intel that has Microsoft's name in it. And trust me, I've seen that happen over and over and over again. And it makes your stomach turn when you see it happen. It's not even just company names. It might be typos in the same proposal, because success breeds success, and you get people want to repeat that success. So they see something that works. People start using the same email. They start using the same proposal template. So those are my big 3. 1, too much information about starting first with your organization and not the customer, putting too much information in there, and you reusing the same ones over and over again, and ultimately including typos or bad company names or poor context, etc.
I had a situation recently where I hired someone to do something for me. So this is past the proposal stage. I paid them, and then I got an email that they send out and I thought this was nice. They just recap, this is the work we agreed, but it had someone else's name in it. And I thought, it's just the email they send out. That wasn't written just for me. It didn't make me feel special. And everybody wants to feel special, especially when you're about to or just did pay money.
Or when you walk 1,000 steps and someone doesn't bring it up in a podcast episode.
That really makes you feel not special. It was 28 miles, Mike. 28 miles, and you just don't care.
Jody, you're special.
It's a shame I had to walk 28 miles to prove it.
It is a shame.
All right, Mike, before we wrap up, do you have any final words about proposals?
Well, 1, I just go to the podcast notes and download the templates we talk about. These things work. They're structured frameworks to help you execute on the things that are important and keep things basic. So that's a pitch for the templates. I've got a lot of really good feedback, and have actually seen how people are applying the same concepts in other things that they're doing in their work. When it comes to proposal, less is more. Keep things simple, and remember that you want your shape, your square, to hold water. If your shape can't hold water, then your deal is at risk. And this framework is a great way to visualize that.
All right. Less is more. Keep it simple. Those are good words for proposals and a lot of things in sales and in life, I guess. That's right.
Sales, life, like all of that. And everybody sees this, or at least I hope everybody sees this. You should be able to connect the dots between the things that we talk about from a sales perspective and how they apply in life. I mean, the first time we talked about proposals, we talked about your proposal and some challenges that you had with your proposal. And if anybody wants to revisit that, you can go to, I think it was like the 3rd or 4th episode. It was really early on in the process where we talked about Jody's proposal experience. When you want to compel your kids to take action, you're delivering some kind of a proposal. You want some call to action. You want somebody to move. There should be some compelling event. What's the problem? The problem is, for whatever reason, I can't get one of the kids to clear their plate from the table, or the plates just sit on the kitchen island. Well, why is it important? It's important because we don't have a lot of time where all of us can start cleaning up after each other. And we want people to make a positive impact on the world when they leave the house. So demonstrate some level of responsibility. What's the call to action? The call to action is take care of your stuff. leave your campsite in a better place than it was when you got there. And I know I'm mixing a lot of these things together, but it's because they all align. When you're compelling people to take action, you're making a proposal for them to do something different or transition from where they are today to where they want to be. And you're asking them to accept that proposal and then move things forward. It happens daily. So apply the lessons you learn related to sales to life and life to sales. And if we simplify these things a little bit more, all of this stuff becomes a little bit easier, I think.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. I learned a lot about proposals today, and I've sent out a lot of them, but now I know even more. So thank you so much, and thank you for listening to the Catalyst Sale Podcast.